Welcome back, dear listeners, to another episode of Tales Plus. Last time, we left off at a critical moment. King Yunan had defended the wise sage Duban against his envious wazir, refusing to believe his malicious accusations. But just when we thought the king had made his final decision, the wazir, refusing to give up, leaned in and began telling another story, one that might change everything.
And that's exactly where we're picking up today. Will this new tale plant doubt in the king's mind? Or will wisdom prevail over envy?
That's what we're about to find out. If you're new here, make sure to follow and subscribe so you don't miss the twists and turns of this incredible story.
It is said, O king, that the wazir, still determined to sway King Yunan, spoke again and said,
"My king, if you do not heed my warning, you may find yourself in the same fate as the young prince who was betrayed by his own wazir."
The king, now growing uneasy, leaned forward and asked,
"And what is the story of this prince and his treacherous wazir?"
and so the wazir began his tale.
That there was once a mighty ruler who had a son, a young prince who was completely obsessed with hunting. Fearing for his safety, the king ordered one of his trusted wazirs to accompany the prince wherever he went, ensuring he would never be alone in the wild. One day, the prince rode out for a hunt, with the wazir following close behind. As they rode, a large and majestic wild beast suddenly appeared in the distance.
"O prince, there's your prey. Go after it and claim your prize."
The prince, fueled by the thrill of the hunt, spurred his horse forward, racing after the beast at full speed. But in his excitement, he lost sight of everything else: the wazir, his men, and even the path back home. He rode deeper and deeper into the wilderness until the beast was gone, and he found himself completely lost.
Where am I?
As he wandered through the empty desert, searching for a way back, he suddenly spotted someone in the distance, a young woman standing alone, tears streaming down her face.
Who are you? What are you doing out here all alone?
"I am the daughter of a great king in the land of India. I was traveling with my people through this desert when sleep overtook me, and I fell from my horse without anyone noticing. Now I am lost, completely cut off from my people, and I don't know where to go."
The prince, moved by the damsel's sorrow, could not leave her stranded. Feeling a sense of duty, he helped her onto the back of his horse and rode through the wilderness, determined to take her to safety. They traveled for some time until they passed by the ruins of an old, abandoned structure. Suddenly, the young woman turned to him and said,
"Oh, my lord, I must stop here for a moment. I need to answer a call of nature."
The prince, ever the gentleman, helped her down from his horse and waited. But as time passed and she did not return, he grew suspicious. Was she truly in distress, or was she simply wasting time? Curious, he decided to follow her quietly, stepping carefully so she wouldn't notice his presence. But what he saw next made his blood run cold. Just ahead, he saw her standing in the ruins, but she was no longer the helpless damsel he had rescued. Her appearance had changed. Her voice had dropped into a sinister tone, and she was speaking to something unseen in the shadows.
"Oh, my children, tonight I bring you a feast, a fine, fat young man for dinner."
The prince's heart pounded as he realized the terrible truth. She was not a stranded princess. She was a gula, a wicked ogress in disguise. And from the darkness, voices answered her monstrous children lurking in the shadows. "Bring him to us, mother. Hurry! We are starving." The prince stood frozen in place, his heart pounding, as he listened to the monstrous voices lurking in the darkness. He knew, without a doubt, that he was meant to be their next meal. Fear gripped him, his muscles tensed, and his whole body trembled as he prepared to run for his life. But just as he turned to flee, the ghola emerged from the shadows, her piercing eyes locked onto him. Seeing his terror, she smiled, a slow, creeping smile that made his stomach turn.
"Why are you afraid, young prince?"
I have encountered an enemy, a powerful one. who wishes me great harm.
Didn't you say you were a king's son?
Yes, that is true.
Then why don't you just give this enemy a little money? Surely he would be satisfied with gold instead of your life.
No, he will not be satisfied with my gold. He wants my life, and I fear there is no escape. I am at the mercy of a cruel oppressor.
If you are truly in such distress, then call upon God for help. He will surely protect you from the harm you fear.
The prince hesitated. Could he trust her words? Or was this just another trick to keep him from escaping? With danger closing in, he had to think fast. Realizing he was trapped and powerless against the Gula, the prince did the only thing he could. He lifted his eyes to the heavens and called out with all his heart,
O God, you who answer those in need and take away distress, grant me victory over my enemy. Protect me, for you have power over all things.
As soon as the words left his lips, something changed. The Ye'ula, upon hearing his prayer, suddenly turned away and vanished into the wilderness, leaving the prince unharmed. With a heart full of gratitude, the prince hurried back to his father's palace and told him everything: the hunt, the deceitful woman, and the deadly trap he had narrowly escaped. The king, upon hearing his son's story, wasted no time. He immediately summoned the wazir who had led the prince into such danger and had him executed on the spot.
Having finished his tale, the wazir looked at King Yunan and spoke with urgency, hoping his words would plant the seed of doubt in the king's mind.
O king, do you not see the lesson in this? If you continue to trust this physician, you too shall suffer the worst of fates. The very man you treat as an intimate friend will bring about your destruction.
The wazir leaned in closer, his voice lowering as he made his final argument.
Consider this. He cured you by something you merely held in your hand. Who's to say he cannot kill you just as easily? What if he is not here to help, but rather to spy on you, waiting for the right moment to strike? If he healed you with something as simple as an object in your palm, what's stopping him from poisoning you with something you inhale?
You speak wisely, O Wazir. It may be as you say. Perhaps this sage has come not to heal, but to destroy. After all, if he could cure me so easily, what's stopping him from taking my life in the same manner?
And so, the wazir's words began to take root in King Yunan's mind. But would he truly act on his minister's advice? Or would he realize the danger of listening to jealousy? The wazir's words had taken hold of King Yunan's heart, twisting his once unwavering trust in the sage Duban into suspicion and fear. The king, now convinced that he was in danger, turned to the wazir and asked,
O Wazir, what must be done with him? You have spoken wisely once more. It shall be done.
O king, summon him at once. When he arrives, strike him down without hesitation. End his life before he ends yours. Deceive him before he deceives you.
And so the king ordered a messenger to be sent for the sage Duban. Meanwhile, unaware of the doom that awaited him, the sage arrived at the palace with a light heart, pleased to be in the king's presence once again. But fate had already sealed his destiny. No one can change what is written, nor escape what is meant to be. And so the sage walked unknowingly toward his fate, trusting in the goodwill of a king who had already turned against him.
Wait, that's it? Just like that, the king changes his mind. A minute ago, he was praising the sage and ready to shower him with gold, and now he's about to execute him.
I know! Can you believe it? The wazir just says a few words, fills the king's head with doubt, and boom! The sage goes from hero to villain in a heartbeat.
I mean, does the king not remember who cured him? The wazir was just talking about what-ifs, but the sage actually saved his life. And yet he trusts the wazir's paranoia instead.
Well, that's the power of manipulation. Sometimes all it takes is a few well-placed words to turn trust into fear. And now, the king is about to make a decision he may never be able to take back.
I really hope he snaps out of it before it's too late.
We'll just have to wait and see, won't we? And so the sage Duban entered the king's court, his heart full of gratitude, completely unaware of the betrayal that had taken root. With a respectful bow, he raised his voice and spoke words of thanks and wisdom to the king.
If I fail to thank you, O king, every single day, then for whom shall I write, and for whom shall I say? You granted me your gifts before I even sought. You showed me kindness without delay or thought. So how could I ever hold back my praise, when your generosity shines in all its displays?
But the sage, ever wise, did not speak only in gratitude. He also reminded the king of a truth greater than all power and wealth.
Turn away from grief. Do not hold on. Let fate decide, for the past is gone. What seems today like loss or strife may one day bring new light to life. For Allah's will is just and wise, and we should never question the skies.
And with that, the sage spoke once more, leaving the king with words that carried the weight of experience and truth.
Leave the world's worries behind, O king, for fate decides the rise and fall of everything. Nothing happens by man's own might, only as willed by Allah's light.
But would the king hear the wisdom in his words? Or had his mind already been poisoned beyond reason? Sage Duban stood before the king, expecting gratitude, perhaps even further reward. But instead, the king's expression was cold, his voice firm.
Do you know why I have summoned you here today?
Only God knows what is hidden.
But the king's next words sent a wave of shock through the court.
I have summoned you only to take your life and to destroy you completely.
The sage, wise as he was, could not believe what he was hearing. His eyes widened in disbelief.
O king, why? What have I done to deserve such a fate?
Men have told me that you are a spy, sent here to kill me. So I will strike first, before you have the chance to strike me.
And with that, the king called for his executioner.
Strike off the head of this traitor and rid us of his evil once and for all.
But Duban, even in the face of death, remained calm. He raised his voice, one last attempt to change the king's mind.
Spare me, and God will spare you. Kill me, and God will bring destruction upon you.
I will never be safe as long as you live. Just as you healed me with something held in my hand, what's stopping you from killing me with something I breathe or touch?
The sage Duban, now realizing there was no escape, looked at the king with sorrow in his eyes.
Is this truly how you reward me, O king? After all I have done for you, you return my kindness with cruelty? You answer good with evil.
There is no other way. You must die without delay.
Hearing these words, Duban felt the weight of betrayal crash down upon him. He had healed a king, saved a life, given his wisdom freely, and yet his only reward was death. And so, tears welled in his eyes, not just for himself, but for the bitter truth he had come to understand. Doing good for the wrong person only leads to regret.
The wise have said, a man walks steady when wisdom leads his way, but take that wisdom from his feet, and surely he will slip and stray.
The executioner stepped forward, his blade gleaming in the light. Without hesitation, he bound the eyes of Sage Duban, preparing to carry out the king's orders. But as the sword was raised, the sage, tears streaming down his face, cried out one final plea.
Spare me, and God will spare you. Do not take my life, or God shall take yours. I was kind, yet kindness did not save me. They were cruel, yet cruelty let them go free. If I live, I will never trust kindness again. And if I die, then let all who follow my path suffer as I have suffered."
The executioner stood ready, waiting for the king's command. Sage Duban, now standing on the brink of death, looked at the king with sorrow and disbelief.
"Is this how you repay me, O king? I have given you nothing but kindness, and yet you return it with cruelty. You grant me a gift, but it is no gift at all. It is a crocodile's boon."
A crocodile's boon? What is the tale of the crocodile?
"O king, I cannot tell you in this state. Have mercy on me as you hope for mercy from God."
And the wise physician wept bitterly, his voice trembling with grief. At that moment, one of the king's closest courtiers could stay silent no longer. He stepped forward and boldly addressed the king. "O king, grant me the life of this man. We have never seen him do anything but serve you. He healed you when no other physician could. Why take the life of one who has brought you nothing but good?"
You do not understand. If I let this man live, I sign my own death warrant. Think about it. He cured me with something I merely held in my hand. What's to stop him from killing me just as easily? He could slip poison into something I smell, or some trick even worse. No, he must die. Only then can I be sure of my own safety.
But Duban, even with death looming over him, did not give up hope. He called out one last time,
"Spare me, and God shall spare you. Kill me, and God shall bring destruction upon you."
but it was no use. The king's mind was made up, and the sage knew that his fate was sealed.
"O king, if my death is truly inevitable, grant me one small request. Let me return to my home for a short while to settle my affairs, to give my family instructions on where to bury me, to say my farewells, and to distribute my books of medicine. Among my collection I have one book, a book unlike any other, which I wish to offer you as a gift, a treasure for your royal library."
A book? What is so special about this book?
"O king, its knowledge is beyond measure. But the most astonishing secret within it is this. If, after you cut off my head, you open the book and turn 3 pages, then read the first 3 lines on the left-hand side, my severed head shall speak to you. It will answer any question you ask."
The king's eyes widened in shock. He had never heard of such a thing. And then, to everyone's surprise, he began to shake, not with fear, but with excitement.
Are you telling me that after I cut off your head, it will still speak to me?
"Yes, O king, that is exactly what I am telling you."
This is incredible. A severed head that speaks. What a strange and wonderful thing.
And so, his anger momentarily forgotten, the king ordered that Duban be sent home under heavy guard. The sage left, knowing his time was short, but also knowing that his plan had begun. The next day, the king's grand audience hall was filled with nobles, emirs, wazirs, chamberlains, and lords of the realm, their robes of silk and gold making the chamber look as vibrant as a blooming garden. And then, through the great doors, entered Sage Duban. He walked calmly, carrying a worn, old book in one hand, and in the other, a small metal etui filled with a mysterious powder, one commonly used for the eyes. The sage approached the king, then sat down before him. His voice was steady as he spoke his final request.
"O king, take this book, but do not open it yet. Wait until my head is severed and falls upon the tray. Then place it firmly on this powder, and only when the blood stops flowing, open the book."
Intrigued, the king accepted the book, eager to witness this strange marvel.
Let it be done.
The executioner stepped forward, his blade gleaming under the court's golden light. In one swift motion, the sword fell, and Duban's head was severed. As it tumbled onto the tray, the executioner pressed it down into the powder as instructed. The executioner had done his duty. The sage Duban's head lay upon the tray, lifeless in all but name. But then, something impossible happened. The sage's eyes opened.
O king, now open the book.
The court gasped. The king, shaking with anticipation, reached for the book. He flipped open the cover, only to find that the pages were stuck together. Frowning, he licked his finger and turned the first page, then the second, then the third. Each one took effort to separate. He continued, carefully prying apart the pages, his curiosity growing. By the time he had unstuck 6 pages, he realized something was wrong.
There is nothing written here. Oh, physician, this book is blank.
Keep turning the pages, king.
The king, determined to find the hidden knowledge, continued. But the book was poisoned, and with each page he turned, the venom seeped into his body. Then, suddenly, his hands began to shake, his chest tightened. A sharp pain shot through his veins. The king's eyes widened in terror. The poison! It has taken hold! And then, as the king staggered, his breath growing weak, something even stranger happened. From the tray, the severed head of Sage Duban began to speak. In a haunting, final verse it declared,
Many have ruled with cruelty and tyranny, but in the end they vanished as if they had never been. Those who are just find justice in return, and those who oppress shall themselves be oppressed. So beware, O king, for fortune does not forget. Take this for that, and blame not fate for your fall.
And so the king fell, just as the sage had warned. A ruler who had everything, undone by his own fear and his own hand. No sooner had the severed head of Sage Duban spoken its final words than King Yunan collapsed, his body rolling lifeless onto the floor. And so it was written, had King Yunan shown mercy, he would have been spared, but he let fear consume him, choosing betrayal over gratitude, and in return, fate sealed his doom. And you, O Ifrit, should learn from his story. Had you spared me, you too would have been spared. But you were determined to take my life, and so your own fate may now be decided.
But before we hear what the Ifrit had to say, dawn broke, and just as she had done before, Shahrazad fell silent.
Oh, my sister, your tale was so wonderful, so rich, so captivating. Ah, dear sister, this is nothing compared to what I could tell you tomorrow night, if I live, and the king allows it.
King Shahryar sat in silence, contemplating the tale he had just heard, and then he made his decision. Her stories are truly wondrous.
And so, the king and Shahrazad rested together until dawn. The next morning the king returned to his court, presiding over judgments, decrees, and matters of the kingdom. But through it all his mind was elsewhere, because when the sun set once more he would return to hear what happened next.